In this video, I'll demonstrate how to complete On Your Own 16-2. So here we are on the assignments page. I'm going to click on the Here link in order to get the appropriate set of instructions and drag that to another screen over here so I can keep an eye on those while I'm completing the assignment. Step 1 says open the data file stock, which would be here. Notice, like some of the others, there's an additional file here that you will not need to complete the On Your Own assignment, so you can ignore the Portlandia one. You only will need stock. So I'm using Google Chrome, so it's going to appear at the bottom of my screen. I can just click on that and it will automatically open Excel for me, and then I'm going to have to click Enable Editing. And step 1 also wants us to save it, so I'm going to click Save As. You may not have that on your quick launch bar, by the way. You can go to File and Save As to do the same thing. And then I'm going to navigate to the folder that I have for this and use the naming convention that we have been using throughout the class for the On Your Own assignments. Last name underscore first initial underscore OYO16-2 in this case. And Excel will automatically add the file extension, so I don't have to worry about that. Step 2 says in the documentation worksheet, enter your name in B3, which would be here, and the current date in B4. So I'm just going to use the today function like we've been using to populate that. Step 3 in the stock values worksheet, which would be here, create a line chart with markers based on the volume of stocks from January 2014 through December 2016. So it doesn't want all of the data because the data goes back to, well, 2007, right? So it doesn't want all of that. So what I'm going to do is grab the column header and start dragging down to 1/5/2014. That would be the January 2014. Now, I also need to get the volume over here, but notice that those two columns, they're not together, so I cannot select them in a single step. But I don't want to grab everything because I don't want the open, high, low, and close on the line chart. I only want the volume. So the way that you can do a non-contiguous selection in Excel, this applies to a lot of other applications, is use the control key. So I'm going to hold down the control key, which you can't see obviously, and then I'm going to also select the volume. Whoops, passed it up. Down to that same place, okay, and then release my control key. So now I have a non-contiguous select. Now you have to be careful here because if you click anywhere else, you will deselect that and you'll have to start all over, okay? So now that I've got the selection that I want, so I'm just going to go to the Insert ribbon, okay, and right here is the line chart. So I'm just going to click, and there are several options here, okay, and the one that I want is Line with Markers, okay, right here, Line with Markers. So there it just creates the chart lickety-splits, very quick. Okay, now step 4 says move the embedded chart to a chart sheet named stock volume. This is very easy to do. All you have to do is right click on the chart, go down to Move Chart, okay, and then select the New Sheet radio button, and it wants us to name it stock volume, and just click OK. So it takes it off of, let me click back over here for a second. See, it takes it off of that worksheet, and it creates an entirely new worksheet with just the chart. Okay, there's no grid lines or anything. It's just the chart. So step 5 says add an appropriate chart title, which is actually already one here. And maybe we want to, in order to edit that, you can do it a couple of different ways. I'm just going to kind of double click on it and just type in stock volume, okay? And then it says set the font to an attractive size. So this might be a little small. What we can do is go back over to the Home ribbon and increase the, whoops, I'll have to highlight that. And then maybe increase the size just a little bit, okay? All right, step 6 says remove the chart legend. Now, mine didn't actually put a legend on it by default, but if yours did, all you have to do is select the legend with your mouse, so it's got the little handles around it, and hit delete on your keyboard. That will delete it. Or you can right click, and I think there's an option that says something like delete legend or something like that, okay? Depends on which version you're using. I think I've got the 2016 version here. That's why yours might look a tad bit different. Step 7 says add appropriate axis titles. Now the axis titles are going to be the titles below here, the horizontal, and here the vertical axis, and those do not exist. So what we can do, we can add those though, okay? So what we do is we're going to go back over here to the design chart. See, once you're on a chart, you have some additional ribbons here, design and format. So this is where we'll do most of the work on the chart. We can go over here to add chart element and see we've got an option for axis titles, and it's giving me the choice between the primary horizontal and the primary vertical, and the little graphics here kind of show you which one you're going to add. So here, that's the horizontal one. I'm just going to kind of triple click in there, and I can say time. Right? I'm going to double click that, and then I can go back over to home and make that just a little bit bigger, make it a little more readable. Okay, and back over to the design and do the same thing for the horizontal. I mean the vertical, excuse me. We did the horizontal. And notice it puts it over here. And we're going to triple click that, and we'll say volume. Highlight that. We could actually change the font right here as well. We don't have to go back to the home ribbon, okay? You'll notice there's several different ways of doing things, okay, in the Office applications. That's true for a lot of different software. Okay, so that completes step 7. Step 8 says for the primary vertical axis, that would be over here. Okay, so we can click that and highlight it and notice how it changes the options we have available over here. Set the maximum value. Of course, we need to get to where we can set the value, which is going to be right here, I believe. Yes, the bounds, minimum and maximum. Okay, Excel is going to automatically choose this stuff to begin with, but we have control over changing it. So the minimum here, it wants us to set it to 200,000, okay, and the maximum to 1.5 million. So we just type that in, and notice how it changes it. Now it's it ends at 1.4 here, but we'll fix that. It says change the major units to 100,000, and that would be here under units. You see you've got major and minor units. So we're just going to highlight over that 200,000 and make it 100,000. As soon as I hit tab, it's going to fill that in, and see now it's corrected that top level. Okay, because it was starting at 200,000 and it went by every 200,000, it would not display 1.5, right, the upper bound. But now that we've selected the 100,000 as the major units, it's actually going to display that 1.5, the odd number. Okay. All right. It's step 9 says change the font size of all the axis values as needed for legibility. So I can actually read those. What it means is the values you're seeing here for the times. You can fool around with the size of that and the styles if you want to make it more readable, but I'm going to leave them alone in my case. Okay, step 10 says display the horizontal and vertical major grid lines as dashed lines. So we already have horizontal grid lines being displayed. I can click on those, and then let's see, go back to click the little bucket here, fill in line, and I can come down here to dash type and select the dash line. That's what it's asking for. Notice how it changes the lines on there from solid to dashed. And it wants us to do the same thing for vertical, but now the vertical grid lines have not been displayed by default, but we can add them. Go back up to add chart element and go to grid lines and then primary major vertical. So it's going to add the up and down lines, okay? And then here is the same thing. We can go to dash type and select the dash. Whoops, they're still on horizontal. Let's see if I can select the vertical lines. Yep, there we go. And see, it's got the dash lines going up and down. So it looks like a little grid kind of within the chart area, okay? Step 11 says change the color of the data markers. So I'm just going to click on the markers. Notice how it highlighted the markers themselves, okay? And over here, it's got line and marker. So I'm going to click marker. Make sure you click marker. Otherwise, you're going to be changing the settings for the line itself. And that's not actually what it's asking for. And we've actually got multiple sets of settings here. One for the border and one for the fill. You're going to need to change it in 2 places here. So change the fill to, let's say, red. You can pick whatever color you want. And then change the border. It's nice that you can change all this stuff, but sometimes it's a bit complicated because you could change one part, not change another, and it doesn't look the way you anticipated. So part of mastering Excel is just being aware of all the stuff you can change so that you have an idea of where to go, especially when it's not behaving the way that you think it needs to. Okay, so we're finished with the chart, and I wish that step 12 said go back to the stock values spreadsheet. It doesn't, but that's what it means. So we're going to go back over here now. And step 12 says add a line spark line to cell E2. So here's cell E2. We're going to add a line spark line. So go to insert, and then right here is the line. See, we got a spark line section. Just hit line here, and it's going to ask us, okay, what data range you want to look at, and it's going to be the close. It's the data down below it. So we're going to click this little arrow here, and then all we have to do is use our mouse to highlight this range of data, and then click the little arrow again to indicate we're finished, and then click OK. Now we're going to scroll up so you can see what it did here. See how it added this little line? Alright, it's like a little miniature line graph of this data down here. Pretty cool. Spark lines are actually really, really useful. Alright, step 13 says in column G, over here, we're going to create a new column called difference. Alright, and it's equal to the difference between the stock's closing value and its opening value. So we're going to say equal the close minus the open. Alright, now we do it this way because in the case when it goes down, it's going to show a negative, right? We lost 2.65 points, right? And then, so if it's positive, that means a gain, right? That makes sense. So you don't do it the other way. Don't say open minus close. You want to say close minus open, right? All right, so now I'm going to click on this formula, and on the fill handle, I'm just going to double click. All right, so it knows to populate that same formula all the way down. You can click and drag if you like, but double click works real well as long as the data is contiguous. All right, step 14 says in cell G2, which would be here, we're going to add a win-loss spark line. So we're going to go over to insert. Insert, excuse me. Click win-loss on the spark lines area. Okay. Select our data range. Click our little arrow again and then say OK. Scroll back up to the top. And there's our win-loss. It doesn't look very good because there's so much data here, but you can see what it's doing. Okay? And then step 15 is simply save the workbook and then close it, and we're finished.